Hello, I'm John Grom, and welcome to our 331st Right and Left Discussion Forum. We hold our televised discussions twice monthly to demonstrate the value of civil, productive, open-minded political dialogue. Today, our panel will discuss the possibility that some of the solutions to man-made climate change could be causing unexpected harm to our ecosystem. Today's panel begins with Dr. Ronald Chamberlin, retired senior research chemist, and followed by Tom Finley, retired vice president of human resources development at Rubbermaid Incorporated, and Patty Haskins, former member of the Wadsworth City Council and the Wadsworth High School faculty. Bryan Laubaugh will not be with us today. He had a scheduling conflict, and hopefully he'll be with us in 2 weeks. Ron, I know that you've given a lot of thought over the years to climate change. You and I have talked about it before. Have you considered the fact that some of in some cases, the cure may be worse than the disease?
John, I'm sure you realize how complex a question that is and how complex the answers will be. And for any specific case, it's beyond my ability to access the resources for that. It is kind of like the ecology. When you make some small change in something in the natural universe, other things change along with it, and it's very difficult to figure out what those relationships are. We did talk about this to some extent several months ago, and I recall bringing in as an example the use of ethanol in addition to gasoline. And the physics on the surface of it looks good. Ethanol, C2H5OH, has two carbon atoms, thus two atoms of carbon dioxide, whereas gasoline is primarily octane, which is 8. So even at a 10% additional level, it would seem that would be true. However, I pointed out that you have to raise the corn, because the ethanol is coming from corn. And while modern mass productions of agriculture processes are quite efficient in terms of the yield for energy out or energy put in, you still have to, the farmers still have to harvest the corn, which takes machinery, which burns fuel, which goes to the refinery, which uses fuel to make the process. So the point is that you have to look at cost, benefit, and risk in all of these things. And is the cost that's doing it going to be greater than the benefit you're getting out? And I think you have to give, it's important you must give that, as you say, maybe this is going to be not worth the cost. Now, you pointed out in some of your primary notes that we just recently talked about before we went on the air about the amount of earth that must be evacuated to get the ore to make the metal for the batteries for electric vehicles. And okay, how much does it cost to do that? Do we have a net gain or a net loss in carbon dioxide from that process? And certainly it's a matter of physics, as we know here, that carbon dioxide and methane in the atmosphere reflect back the infrared radiation coming off the Earth, which is heated by the sun and doesn't let it go away. And report just this morning that August in 2023 is second hottest month on record, following July, which was the hottest month on record so far worldwide, globally. And in the United States and the UK, this data goes back to the late 1800s. In other places, not quite so far. Now, I've not been a follower, a appeal to authority here. I remember when Rachel Carlson was complaining about DDT, like many other people, and many scientists said, well, this is ridiculous. Mosquitoes are terrible. You know, they cause malaria, they cause encephalitis. We need to get rid of them. And you and I grew up in an area where they came around at night and fogged the whole town with DDT. I remember working one summer in Salem, New Jersey, which is on the Salem River, which is tidally connected to the Delaware River, close to the southern New Jersey. And I walked out one evening along the riverbank as the sun went down, and I could hardly breathe. There was so many mosquitoes in the air. I was afraid I was going to get a lung full of mosquitoes. And they fogged every night. Well, people still fog. I'm not sure they use DDT. But Rachel Carlson got no headway until she wrote a popular book called Silent Spring, where she pointed out the ecological damage of DDT. Maybe we need to do this too for climate change. Maybe we need some popular thing, not just no bandwagon here, but following the data on that, looking at since the late 1800s, the Industrial Revolution and the change in population, the increase in population, there are more of us using more fossil fuels, and looking at everything, the research that's been done, the other thing which has put carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, but far and away the burning of fossil fuels has been the greatest, has convinced me that this is a real phenomenon and it's human caused. And humans need to do something about it. Now, as I say, the falling of an individual thing here is beyond my ability to find the resources to study this. It needs to be done. It's very important to do it. Sure, there can be unintended consequences and probably will be unintended consequences. And some of these are going to make the problem worse than better. We have to be very careful about that, whether it be sequestering carbon, whether it be using wind power and solar power, water power. There are processes, there are plans afoot to put generators, say, in the ocean, just offshore. And so that the wave action and the current action will turn generators and produce electricity. And all of those things need to be done, probably. And the consequences, the risk of not doing things in a positive way is extremely great. And it is very, very important to make sure that what we do is a net positive result, positive being reduction in carbon dioxide. Yeah. We're almost at the tipping point. Interesting little things happen. For example, I saw a speculation not too long ago that the polar bear is probably going to be one of the few large predatory animals that is primarily going to be targeting people because they can't get out on the sea ice because the sea ice is not forming as fast. It's melting faster, so they can't get out there to hunt their seals. So if you live in Churchill, Canada, watch out. The bears are there. So things of that sort. We're an interconnected universe. And what we do in one area affects the other, and we have to study that. We have to try to decide on it. It's a very real problem, and that's something we need to assess.
Well, thank you very much for your ideas, Tom. Where is your head taking you on this topic?
When this topic came up, I sat back and it kept occurring to me. Ask the question: cause and effect, cause and effect, cause and effect, and out of the blue, it came to me. So this was not any study or anything else. More people are the cause of climate change. We just require more of this, more of that, which requires, and the list goes on. What is an impact this is to accept the fact that are we going to have to limit population growth? Are we going to have to control population? The question of itself is immense in its impact on our living and lifestyle and our resources and so forth. So that's an unanswered question, and I throw it on the table saying it is the primary reason for climate change. We are growing too many people.
Yeah. There have been attempts in the past, particularly in China, in the U.S., where they discovered I think in China they had a one-child policy per family, and they wound up with having not enough people, just young people, to support the old people. And I think we're running into the same thing in the United States. We're below replacement level now. And we have a social structure that requires younger people to be paying into Social Security to support older people. And if that doesn't happen, we don't know where it's going to go. Patty, what are your thoughts on this topic?
Well, I thought about the question in terms of, I've read everything about the batteries and for the electric cars and the amount of ores that would be required, and that this could create a problem in the future. I think at this point, we could look at it as a temporary stay until technology allows us to come up with something better. When we think of climate change, of course, we still have people that deny that it's even existing and that it's a problem, and that's still prevalent in some corners. I fully believe that there is climate change, and that we as a people need to do something about it. Now, as I said, electric cars are not the only way that we combat it. As a matter of fact, they might be one of the least effective ways, at least at present. I recently saw on TV a gentleman, and he worked for was a manager of an electric car company or whatever, I can't remember exactly, but he was going to do a cross-country trip. And he had to abandon his electric car after so far because he simply couldn't find charging stations to accommodate him. And he had to go back to a gas car. I mean, presently, in this area alone, I had asked on one of our recent shows if we even have charging stations here in Wadsworth. I mean, I wouldn't even know where to go to charge an electric car. So that's not the only solution, but it's something that we have right now. But we have to couple this with all of the other ways in which we fight climate change, whether it be looking at alternative sources of power, be it wind or solar or nuclear. I saw recently an interesting, and I don't quite understand how this works, but they talk about vertical plantings, whereas opposed to planting food in rows, you plant it vertically, and it saves on the resources and the soil and so forth. Now, how vertical planting works, I really don't understand that, but there are some of these newer ways to combat climate change. One of the arguments I know against trying to do anything is that, well, we have to get China and India and Russia in on this because they are the greatest polluters. And unless they do anything, nothing we can do to help. Well, just because other countries aren't doing anything to fight climate change, I don't think that gives us an excuse not to at least give it a try. Because, we need to do that because as we've seen, the glaciers are melting, the ice sheets are going, the water levels have gone up, the ocean levels have gone up, the temperatures are the highest they've ever been. And this is affecting our weather. I mean, if we look at the temperatures in the Atlantic right now, they are well above the highest they have ever been, which promotes and prompts more hurricanes and bad weather events. We just had Idalia on the west coast of Florida hit, and it increased something like over 35 miles per hour in the wind gusts within a 24-hour period, which they consider a super storm or a super increase. Well, that's because the water is so warm that it allows those storms to accelerate. And we're going to see more and more of these storms occur. We see more wildfires, all sorts of different types of climate catastrophes that are occurring. And it's due to the fact that we do have climate change, and we need to start looking at ways to remediate the problems that we have.
Yeah. I think one of the big problems that we face right now is our inability to tackle the problem. The International Panel on Climate Change from the UN does a very good job of gathering data and studying things, but then they start to interpret the data in ways to fit political points of view, and that is a very difficult thing. That all data, as Ron has backed me up on this as a scientist, but all data has certain has uncertainties about it. We have plus or minus limits on practically every piece of data. And if you're allowing your politics to interfere with your opinion forming mechanism, you're going to intentionally misstate those uncertaidties.
And it shouldn't be a political issue.
Well, it certainly is.
Couple of comments here. I didn't get to watch the Republican candidates and possible candidates debate, but I understand that the moderator asked him, if you believe that humans cause climate change, raise your hands. No hands went up. That's scary. That's really scary.
I was thinking the same thing, Ron. I remember thinking that is a political issue for Republicans. If you don't deny climate change, you're not a good Republican.
Yeah.
So,
oh man. Well, Tom, to your point, increase in the population is perfectly valid, and therefore we have more people. Therefore, we're burning more fuel and creating more carbon dioxide. So that's certainly a case. I had something else too, but it's slipped my mind now. But
it's the base of the problem. If we're not careful, we'll be addressing the wrong things in terms of priority. Too many people. The Earth can only tolerate so many people. How many is that? Does anybody know? I don't know the answers to these questions.
Billion now, something like that. Also in modern societies and in advanced economies, child family size gets limited. Families, all members of family work. As the large population increases occurring in the poorer countries, so that's one of those phenomenon that occurs. So yeah, we got fewer young people because it's how sociology has been working for the past several generations. And China had the experiment, which didn't work for them very well. And it's not working that well for us here in the United States. So I remember back in the 50s and the 1950s, as an impressionable young man, reading a government pamphlet about how important it was to increase our family size. So that's changed.
And I don't want to get religion into the topic, but when there are going to be too many people, so far, I don't know, there's this business of God and the impact of religion and so forth. But now what if we said the only solution is we can only have this size population on the earth? Now, who in the world is going to pull the plug, if you will?
Yeah.
I come back to okay, what if we had a huge plague that began to get the size of population in place? Now, who's going to cause that plague? And I don't want to get into religion today with this discussion, but we get back to the base problem. This earth will only support a certain number of people. And I don't know what that number is, but we are already into cause and effect.
You know, the problem, I think, when you think about population control, it will probably be most effective in the more modern cultures. So we'll have the contributors, the smarter people, if you will, limiting their reproduction, and the others will not. And I hesitate to say something like this. I sound like a supporter of the Third Reich or something, but
right. That is the whole idea of population control is really a difficult problem.
So back again, cause and effect, and you stay scientific, and you get to cause and effect, and to solve a problem, you get to the cause, the base cause.
Yeah.
Well, if it's too many people, you see where we are immediately. We're out of control. No one can say, well, that's all we're going to have, and we're into a dilemma.
Wars and pestilence, Tom. That's our answer. Wars and
What'd you say, Ron?
Wars and pestilence. That's our answer.
Well,
A good war and a good pandemic will help solve that problem.
Yes.
only if it's in the countries closer to the equator.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, listen, I forgot to start my timer, so I have no idea how much time we have left. Joanna, are you?
You have 7 minutes.
Oh, great.
Son of a gun.
All right.
Well, we could solve the problem in 7 minutes.
Well, I wrote some notes here that I'd like to hear your comments on. Unfortunately, the public is subjected to blue facts and red facts. And nearly all the other public media is slanted one way or the other. Unfortunately, the absolute truth and excuse me, missed my place here. The absolute truth is in hiding. I don't know what we're going to do about having honest discussions, honest evaluations of honest information without having these political conflicts over every damn thing. I think, Ron, you mentioned somebody mentioned the fact that on a Republican debate, how many people supported climate change and nobody raised their hands. I have an idea if you ask the opposite question to a panel of Democrats, you'd also see a lack of hands going up. That all Democrats, if you want to be a Democrat in good standing, you have to believe that we're on the verge of extinction due to climate change. Excuse me. COPD is a bitch.
All that methane.
Yeah, but we have having trouble getting an honest discussion about this topic.
Harkening back to Rachel Carlson, she didn't get any headway until she was able, through her popular book, to convince the public that this is happening. And particularly, what really turned the tide on that was pointing out that how the American bald eagle was on the verge of extinction because of DDT. It caused the eggshells to become thin so that the eggs were not surviving the incubation period. And not until she was able to point this out and get the public behind it that the government was able to would respond and put bans on the use of DDT and widespread. We even used to I don't know if they still do this, but mosquito larvae, they breathe with a little snorkel. They're in the water and they got this little tube sticking above the surface. People used to put diesel oil in the swamps to make a thin film and suffocate out the mosquito larvae. And that's not a very good process in terms of the overall ecology in the wetlands. So in some ways we've been smarter on some of these things, but it took a popular movement. It took a popular movement, not led by the government, to bring that about. And
she was very successful in saving the bald eagle, but we've got millions of children in Africa that are dying from diseases borne by those mosquitoes.
Maybe you remember probably in the late 60s, early 70s, there was a big encephalitis scare going on here in the Akron area. And I know we limited taking our children out to parks and so forth because of mosquitoes. And again, there are costs and consequences. And were we better off not to fall with DDT? Probably. Do we have alternatives to kill mosquitoes? Yes, we do. some of which are good, some of which are not. We have to be careful about killing off our bees by putting herbicides and pesticides on our lawns and our gardens. All of these things are interconnected, and this is why it's such a great complex problem, is because everything is connected.
Hmm.
You know,
Well,
I think too, in some
I'm going to
cases,
go back to this very sensitive belief, if you will, of the creator of this planet, of the universe, but the word creator. And if that implies religion, okay. But the basic law established by that creator is cause and effect. And that's what we're talking about today. We're just looking at cause and effect about every which way we turn.
Yeah.
And one of the major causes is the population growth of this planet continues to increase.
Yeah. Patty, what were you about to say something?
you know, I think that unfortunately, until people even realize or recognize that there's a problem, we're going to have that continued infighting. And I don't feel that people will recognize the problem until it affects them personally. You know, they look at an increase in the temperature of the water in the ocean, the ocean, and they go, well, big deal. It went up 1 degree. That's not much.
6.8 degrees Fahrenheit right now. 6.8, the highest in history.
Exactly. But they don't see how that affects them. And oh, okay, so some places will they'll have some water run up. I'm always surprised when after a hurricane hits, recently, and there's been all of this damage, and the proponents are coming out saying that, yes, we are having more of the hurricanes and more severe because of climate change. And even then it affects them, and they still don't recognize that this is something that we have to deal with. So until we can change that mindset that there even exists a problem, it becomes very, very difficult to deal with it.
But what do you do as an individual?
Say it again, John.
No, you recognize that climate change is threatening humanity. What does an individual do about it? Go out and buy an electric car?
Well, you can take what steps, whether it be recycling, what you can do individually. You can support, in politics, you can support people that will promote clean air and green policies and develop green policies that will help to ameliorate the problem that we have.
But I think we've got a situation right now where we have a president that does anything that he thinks sounds good, that's going to get him votes in the next election. The real solutions are not going to be in public opinion. They're going to be scientific solutions by scientists who are faithful to the data.
Exactly.
And that's hard to find.
Yeah, CBS had a scientist on, and I've seen him before, and I can't remember his name. Then he was on Fox this morning, but he was talking about using lasers to hit the clouds to bring on rain, and it was rather interesting and well above my science knowledge when he was explaining it. But we have to, really promote these scientists that are coming up with ideas and at least evaluate them to see if they're a possible solution for the problem that we have.
Well, I think we have to encourage scientists to stop being political as well.
Yeah.
Panelists, your time is up.
Okay, thank you very much, folks. See you in 2 weeks.
Yeah,